Hi y'all, a little while back we looked at the best and worst things about each UFC champion, but what are the weaknesses and drawbacks that each champ has? Let's figure that out. First, we gotta get the only two fighters that don't really have anything holding them back or any type of weaknesses out of the way first, and that's Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev. With Ilia, he's one of the more recent champions, only winning his belt in February against Volkanovski, and in his fight against both Volk and Max, he looked pretty much unstoppable with zero weaknesses or any drawbacks. And with Islam, he only continues to look more unbeatable at lightweight every time he fights by constantly adjusting his game plans and making sure to fix any holes in his game that were shown in his last fights. But the only thing I can say for both Islam and Ilia that might be holding them back is their activity. This year, Islam only fought once in June against Dustin Poirier, and Ilia fought once in February against Volkanovski, and once in October against Max Holloway after taking 0 to no damage in his fights against both. With Alexandre Pantoja's dominance at flyweight, I think it's pretty safe to say that he's a pretty complete fighter with barely any weaknesses or any drawbacks. But the one thing I noticed with Pantoja during his fights is the fact that he tends to struggle and slow down if he's unable to out-wrestle his opponents, like he did against Moreno and Usyk, which were both super close fights, and fights where some can argue that Pantoja did end up losing. With Merab and Bilal, I honestly think that they both have the same weaknesses when it comes to their fights, and that's the fact that both fighters always control majority of the fight but almost never aim for finishes, which from a fan's point of view, it ends up making their fights look boring, which for their fighting style being primarily wrestling, it definitely doesn't help them change some fans' opinions on their fights. And another thing is the fact that both fighters, especially Bilal, tend to struggle against opponents that have good takedown defense and force him to stay on his feet due to his shit striking skills and lack of power. For DDP, honestly, I don't even know what DDP's weakness is. Before, it would have definitely been his gas tank, but after he got that nose surgery, his plot armor just got buffed by 100, where he manages to look like he's losing for the entire fight until he just pulls some shit out and gets the dub. Alex Pereira is honestly an interesting one because while his striking game is pretty much complete, his skills on the ground hasn't been tested yet by a fighter that's primarily a wrestler. The last time we saw him fight against someone that had somewhat of a wrestling background was against Jan Blachowicz at UFC 281. And he seemed to struggle against Jan's wrestling throughout the entire fight. And even to this day, some fans can make the argument that Alex would have lost if Jan didn't end up gassing out due to the altitude. But recently, Alex did show on his Instagram that he was working on his skills on the ground, his ground skills. So if the day ever comes where he decides to fight a wrestler, it'll be good to see if he's fixed that hole or not. Honestly, I'd say John's biggest problem was always his life outside the octagon, but many like to separate John's career from his personal life. So his biggest drawbacks right now is the fact that he hasn't fought Aspinall to unify both belts, and instead he's holding up the heavyweight division by making Aspinall defend the interim belt, which is already an insane thing to do. And the obvious thing with John is the fact that he got caught for taking steroids. But personally, I wouldn't put someone that got caught cheating as number 1 on my GOAT list. But that's just me though. But those are some of the weaknesses and drawbacks of every UFC champion. I'm not even gonna lie, this was honestly a filler type of video just to get one out for this week. But I hope you guys did enjoy it regardless, and please like and subscribe if you want to see more UFC and sports content like this, and thank you for watching.